Okay, today we're going to talk about factoring trinomials. And when we do that, we're going to learn on the second day about a trinomial that would be called prime. And in a prime trinomial, you're not going to find a way to factors that will work in order to be able to factor it. So we're going to introduce that idea, and then we'll go, but the rest of the lesson is going to be pretty much what we did last time. First, let's look at the sum. We're going to write it out here, and the product. Okay, we need this to sum to be negative 13s, and we need it to multiply to be negative 30s squared. And remember, we're going to go here and draw our box. It's nice when the box is drawn for us, but it's usually not. We're going to put our s squared term in here, negative 30 in here. Remember, when this term is negative, we have one of our factors is plus and one is minus, and they have to add to be negative 13. Well, you have 30 times 1, 15 times 2. If the signs are different, that's the one that's going to give it to us. And then 15 is going to be the negative because it's the larger of the two, and we need them to add to be negative 13. So we have negative 15s and 2s. Let's see if I can make that look like a 5. Okay. Now we work on figuring out what our factors are. Excuse me, we have s times s. What do we put in this blank? When multiplied by 2 gives me 2s. So 2 times s is 2s. And then over here in this blank we'll have negative 15. Negative 15 times s is negative 15s. Negative 15 times 2 is negative 30. So we have our two factors are s minus 15 and s plus 2. Okay. Now on this one, we need it to add to be negative 3q, and we need it to multiply to be, we need a product of 25q squared. Okay, well, factors of 25 are 25, 1, and 5 and 5. And there's no way we can multiply those two things together. We have 1 and 25, and we have 5 times 5. And there's no way we can multiply that, and they're both going to be negative in this case because our last term is positive, the first term or the second term is negative. So both of these are going to have to be negative. It have to be a negative 1 and negative 25. Negative 5, negative 5. Can't get a negative 3. So we're going to write for this one that it is prime. Now, again, let me caution, do not write prime too quickly. Some of these you may have a little difficulty finding the factors for, but that doesn't mean they're prime. And the other thing we're going to learn, just because they're prime doesn't mean they're not solvable. It just means they're not solvable by factoring. And we're going to learn how to solve one that is prime in a later lesson. All right, so let's do the same process here. We're going to add, we want them to add to be 3r and multiply to be negative 28r squared. Okay, draw our box. Okay. Put our terms in it, 2r squared and negative 14. And what are we going to discover? We're going to discover that we have one of each, one positive and one negative because of this negative here. And we have 1 times 28, 2 times 14, 3 times nothing, and 4 times 7. So we have 7 times 4. However, we need it to be a positive 3, so the 7 is going to be positive, and the 4 is going to be negative, because we need them to add to be positive 3. So we'll put our 7r in one of these squares, and again, it doesn't matter where you put it. Factors of 2, that's going to be 2 times 1. I'm not going to put the 2 here because there's nothing that multiplies by 2 to give me 7. So put the 2r up here. R on the side, that multiplies to be 2r squared. Excuse me. R times 7 will give me 7r. 2r times negative 2 gives me negative 4r, and 7 times negative 2 gives me the negative 14 that I need. So I've done that correctly. And my two factors are 2r plus 7 and r minus 2. Okay, and that's your answer. Now this one looks pretty complicated. It's got big numbers, but let's look. We want it to add to be negative 19y, and we want it to multiply to be 70y squared. Right? Now this is one of those you might quickly say is prime, but let's double check. Both factors are going to be negative, so we're going to add them together. And we have 1 times 70, not it, 2 times 35, 3, 4, don't have that, 5 times, what is that? My mental math is not doing very well right now. 14, is that right? 50, 60, 70, yes. Okay, and then we have 10 times 7. Okay. And if we look through here, we notice that if both of these are negative, negative 5 and negative 14 would add to be negative 19. So we found our two factors. Let's draw our box. Okay. And we have 10y squared and 7. And we're going to put negative 5y and negative 14y. Okay. Factors of 10. We have 1 times 10. Well, we have multiples of 1. I mean, we can multiply by something by 1, but we can't multiply either of these by 10 and get anything by 10 and get one of these, the nice integer. So we're going to say 2 times 5. Well, 5 times 1 is 5, so we're going to put that there. And since 14 is even, we know it will be a multiple of 2. So that's going to give me my 10y squared. 5y times negative 1 gives me negative 5y. 2y times negative 7 gives me negative 14y. And then negative 7 times negative 7 is positive 7. So since that all works, our factors are 2y minus 1 times 5y minus 7. And that would have been one that I would have suspected that if you weren't careful, you would have tended to say, that must be prime. Look at that big number. A 19, 19's prime. So be careful. They may look like, you can suspect they're prime, but you still need to go through the exercise of getting the factors. Okay, let's move up to the next page. And we're going to see a couple things that look kind of different. And the boxes, thank goodness, are already drawn for us. But you notice in here, there are 2 letters, 2 variables. But the process, this is the key, the pattern continues. We're not doing anything different than we did before. They're going to add, if you look, we're going to go through the same method. These will add to be the middle term, 4xy. and they're going to multiply to be 4 times 3 is 12, x squared, y squared. Okay, so factors of 12, there's going to be one of each, one plus and one minus, and they're going to add to be 4. Well, that looks like that's probably 6 and negative 2. 6 times negative 2 is this should be negative 12 here. Negative 12, and 6 plus negative 2 is positive 4. So we're going to put our first and last term in the boxes, and then we're going to have 6xy and negative 2xy. Okay. All right, factors of 4 are going to be 4 times 1 or 2 times 2. Well, neither of these is a multiple of 4, so we're going to use 2 times 2. 2y times 2y is 4y squared. 2y times 3x will give me 6xy. 2y times negative x will give me negative 2xy. And 3x times negative x gives me negative 3x squared. So my factors are 2y plus 3x and 2y minus x. Okay. Here my sum needs to be 2uv and my product u squared v squared. Okay. So factors of 2 are just 2 and 1. Oh no, factors of 1 are 1 and 1. Okay. So we have u squared. So we have and v squared. And we have 1 uv and 1 uv. And that adds to be 2 uv. So we have u times u times v is uv, u times v is uv, and v times v is v squared. Now, this is, we could write it as u plus v times u plus v, or if you want to, you can write it as u plus v squared, because they're both multiplied together. So you could write it either way, like this, or just as one of the factors squared. And on our last one, our last example, we want it to add to be negative 3kn, and we want it to multiply to be negative 10kn. Okay? We need factors of negative, this is k squared, n squared. We need a positive and a negative factor of 10. And we're going to have 10 times 1, 2 times 5. 2 times 5 will do it if the 5 is negative. It should have been a 2. Okay, that will add to be negative 3. So put 5k squared in, negative 2n squared, negative 5kn, and 2kn. Only factors of 5 are 5 times 1. So we're going to put the 5k here and 1k here. 5 times negative n is negative 5kn. 1 times 2n is 2kn. And 2n times negative n is negative 2n squared. So our factors are k minus n and 5k plus 2n. Okay, and that's the end of this. Now you notice out of these examples, 7 of them, only 1 was prime. So again, you'll find some primes on your homework, but don't write prime for too many of them. Be sure, absolutely certain, that they are prime.